Hey, it's Shabes, and welcome to another edition of Anitube Digest, where we go over the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this week. In this case, from October 26th to November 1st, today, if you released a video at past 3 o'clock, or 2:47 on Friday. I didn't see it. We'll watch it next week. Hopefully, maybe. Alright, well, I was this close, again, to putting out a video that didn't have a not good. And this video that I'm about to tell you was this close to being decent, and it's fine. So Daniel Santos put out this monster of a video, hour and 40 minutes, School Days, a study in infamy. And the general conceit is to explain why School Days remains in the public consciousness, or at least in the anime community, of why people still kind of talk about it, or at least still remember it. And he's coming at it from the perspective of someone who hates the show. He's pretty open about that, and but still takes it pretty objectively, kind of analyzing it. And the reason it's so long is he's really explaining the entire show, episode by episode, and kind of giving you the point. You know what I mean? Which I will admit, very much reminded me of Roger's video on School Days, being more of a defense of School Days. Only Roger's is significantly shorter. I don't think any of your outright analysis was poor, or your concept or anything like that, but the execution, I think there's a lot to talk about that I think is good for people to know about, or just to what I think makes a video like this work and not work in this case. So, first thing out of the way, as this is coming from somebody who literally put out a video of similar length, an hour and 13 minutes, the same week as you did. I think within the same day or two. So I know where you're coming from, that this is a fucking process. And it's and I don't want to, I want to give you as much kudos and respect as possible when making something this big and this detailed, because it's so time consuming, and I can't even. It was time consuming for a show that I love. Mine was about like one of my favorite shows, and you were pretty open about hating this show. And there's several moments where you kind of go on tangents of how much this sucks or whatever, and then not like in not in like a Bennett Sage way, but more just kind of like, look, this is a terrible scene. So I give you full respect in the world for handling this subject at all. Never mind this long and detailed. But I just want to make some notes of what I thought. So this does not have to be an hour 37 minutes. I'm sorry. First of all, I had to put your video on 1.5 speed or 1.75 speed, because you talk very slowly. Right now I'm talking kind of slowly too, because I'm talking off the top of my head. I'm not talking off a script. You use similar kind of tactics with Super Eye Patch Wolf sometimes does, and he's been weaning off of it lately, where you take every sentence and make it impactful. And if you just do that for an hour and 37 minutes, of course if you keep doing that for every sentence for however long your script is, which seems to be kind of a 50-minute script from what I can gauge of the words. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I just don't think it's an hour 37. Needless to say, I was able to listen to this video pretty articulately at 1.5 and 1.75, to the point where it even felt slow even then at some points, where it felt like a natural pause during some parts. It didn't feel like a rut. I forgot sometimes. I'm like, wait, is this at 1.5 speed? Oh, it's at 1.75 speed. Oh. And I'm sorry if that's insulting, but I just want to tell you the truth. I don't like doing that, but I have a lot of these other videos I want to watch and time in my day, and I wanted to put this in this digest because I think it's a a major thing that in all the videos that people have been releasing this week, this is a significant project and I want to talk about it. And in order to do that, I have to make sure I watch all of it. I'm not going to talk about a video that I only watched half of and then turn it off and then give you my thoughts. That's very disrespectful. But full transparency with the behind the scenes of how this works, I like watching these on Friday, the day I'm recording. Like, so I just watched all of these videos within the course of this past couple hours. So like, and I know it might be kind of giving an excuse of like why I don't like that your video was this long or whatever. I get it, and this is why I'm sort of feeling self-conscious about giving you these notes. But you talk really slow. I can't prove this, but I feel like you repeat yourself a couple times or just beliterate the point a little too much. I feel like there's another draft of this that you could tighten this up in several places. It felt a little rambly, tangential, and meandering. One thing that was a particular note that I really want to give you and anyone else who wants to make a long video like this. I'm not against making long videos because obviously I've made 2 of them. I just put out one this week. I get where you're coming from. The idea of chapters in your video and splitting your video up into sections. The reason people do that is not just making it more digestible, but it's also like, a place where, people are able to maybe stop or pause or do, come back later to it or something like that. But it's generally a way to pace your video out. And the way you pace this video out is an introduction, which is 4 minutes or so, and then 3 parts, and then a conclusion, which is like 2 or 3 minutes. The maximum length, I think, of a chapter or a section of a video should be is like 15 minutes. And yours is half hour. It's just there's just big chunks. So then the experience as a viewer, you're listening to this video and making your points, and I don't get the sense of when this video is going to end, and when the chapters are kind of wrapping up and giving you an arc. It's not digestible. So I didn't really see the point in the chapters at all. I feel like you could have broken it down by episode. And so this is episode 1, talking about it. Episode 2, talking about it. Because there's a part, especially when you're starting to talk about episode 12, like, here we are, we've made it to episode 12, and kind of deal. And I did that in my Megalobox. I go episode by episode, making it clear, like, I'm talking about this episode, and it's just easier for an audience to follow through with what you're saying if you're not jumping around everywhere, and you very specifically go step by step if that's what you want to do, which ultimately I'm not totally sure if you needed to do that. So your thesis generally is the ending is what shocked people, but it shocked people because it was unexpected. It felt unexpected. And you're essentially justifying the ending with showing how it got to that point, or it's like it makes sense that it got to this point. There's some parts here and some parts it's not executed well, but it's not something that is completely baffling or like shock value, like the rape scene, which you mention in that scene, but you don't bring it up later. I think that could have been a good point to justify why, like, this is significant. As gruesome as it is, it's escalated to the point where it makes sense that things got to this point. Whereas, in contrast, in the show, this rape scene, not only is it not mentioned ever again, but it's not built up. That's why it was even more it's so much so out of place, because it hadn't escalated to that point yet. So, like, there's good bits of analysis in here with, like, there's a scene in, like, towards the end of the series where this character's having some vision, and a bunch of characters are wearing different colored masks, and you're describing what each character's mask is supposed to be and what it's representing and stuff, and that's great. What does it have to do with this show being a study in infamy, and, like, what does it make the show infamous? And maybe you can explain that, but I did not get the sense as a viewer why that is necessary in your video. You can explain in the comments or any time after the fact, but to me, within first watching, I did not know why you were bringing that up. And there's several points like that. So it ends up feeling kind of bloated. And lastly, more on a technical perspective, something that I also felt like, you see, this is kind of emblematic of why I think this needed to be trimmed or otherwise reduced or focused more. There's a lot of moments where you're using a still or a screen cap with the subtitle, and I get you don't want to like repeat the quote over and over and over and over and over and over, but that I always feel like that kind of goes to show that like that's how long you're dwelling on this one clip with this one quote. And in fact, it's a lot of repeating the same clips. And yeah, maybe it's because it's a 12-episode show, and I'm certainly guilty of that with Megalobox and everything like that. And but I feel like you as an editor, you want to try your best in trying to make the viewing experience consistently fresh and not feel like it's going in circles. It's like, oh, we're going back to this clip again, and the same sequence. You know what I mean? That was just what kind of felt like to me. Visually, it all kind of glazed together. With a lot of still shots, repeated shots that were always that it's the one shot that it represents the point that you're talking about, and there's no other clip that you could use. I kind of feel like I'm being unfair to this video because there's a lot to this, but I'm just kind of communicating my grievances with it. I didn't think it was bad. Don't think this not good thing as just like, don't watch this. I'm putting this in the digest so I can direct people to it and like, hey, give this a shot maybe. But I'm just communicating what I'm telling you, because I could have put this in decent and then give you all those exact same points the same way I did and make you. I don't know how I would feel about that, but those are my genuine opinions. So I'm like, yeah, I have more kind of critical things to say than I do the positive stuff. So I'm going to place it where I may. And maybe you never see this out. Oh, and last thing. It's really interesting that you made this giant video and justifying the ending, which is really the core of what you were talking about, of like the infamy part, and you cite the ending as what was the infamy thing. And that was the part of the video where I was most paying attention, because I knew that was what you were just directly addressing your point. But the rest of the video, it really felt like you were just kind of explaining the show and just kind of story regurgitation, which, hey, I also did story regurgitation in these long videos, so I get where you're coming from. But it reminded me of a video that also came out this week that is in this digest that Kevin Nyaa did. And I'm going to talk more about Kevin Nyaa's video later. His video is explaining the ending of FMA and why it's so great. And he acknowledges that in order to really explain it, you have to understand the series as a whole. So what he could have done, if you were in his, if he was in your position and he did what you did, he would have made this giant video covering the 51 episodes and really laying it out, of thoroughly explaining it and making a whole point. And maybe it could have been really cool. But this was just the video he did make, where he summarizes his perspective of where the series is supposed to go as a whole, without diving into so much of it or all of it, as being as thorough as possible like you were here. He was able to get his point across pretty well, I felt. And you do make that point of like the ending, it only works when you understand the rest of it. And it's like, sure, but you can do that in like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. This is a lot. That's just what I thought. And you do mention in one of your comments that you initially went that direction, but it spiraled into something, and it ended up being this whole thing. And that's fine. And Bennett kind of, this is similar to what Bennett the Sage kind of ran into last week with Dot Hack, where he had this one idea for the idea of a video, and then and then just kind of unraveling, it became something else. And I encourage people to not, if that ends up happening to you and ends up being something not additive, I wouldn't make it. I don't necessarily think that was this, because this was fairly additive overall. I think the analysis was pretty sound. I think you were pretty passionate about the thing while not being too vitriolic, which is a very difficult balance when you're talking about a show you don't like. Like, you didn't sound vitriolic about towards the show for most of it. You sound pretty even keel, which is very impressive. There was just a lot, and then my thoughts generally boil down to, man, this did not need to be an hour 37 minutes. Maybe that's the allure, and I can sympathize with the allure of a long video, because I like the idea as well. But yeah, all right. Well, time to talk about the videos that I thought were decent, just okay. Hello. All right, Nunmanji. What is Pokemon truly about? And I'm seeing that Sun and Moon thumbnail, I'm like, oh boy. As someone who is, I don't know if I'm actually going to make that video anymore. New evidence has come to light, and kind of reflecting on my own values and what I want to make in content, and there's things about it I'm like, I don't think this is it, Chief. That's just me. About this video, I liked it a lot. I was surprised it wasn't directly about the anime. It was mostly about the franchise in general. Really talking about different points in the narrative of the games and in narrative of the manga, and in the anime. There's so many, and backing up, Nunmanji backs up their points with examples from several gens. I don't know if I'd say every generation. I feel like it was every generation. Maybe not enough like Gen 3 or something, but fine. You know, it wasn't very exclusively one gen or another. So it was very fair and even, and not all that hyperbolic or vitriolic. Because I feel like a lot of PokeTubers especially, and you've probably experienced this, Nunmanji, of just being super over the top and vitriolic and like intense in their perspective, because it's a series that means so much to them. But yeah, I really liked the approach you gave to it, and the point you if I may spoil the point, it's about growth. And I'm upset that you didn't mention the pun, well, not really the pun, but like the fact that evolution is such a key thing in Pokemon too. Like, the Pokemon themselves are encouraged to grow. And then the Pokemon anime making a commentary on like a Pokemon's decision to not grow physically, but to still grow stronger, like Bulbasaur, for example, wanting to still get stronger and grow without having a physical transformation. You're very much right, especially in the conceit of the trainer going from point A to point B, from being a boonie in some town to the champion. Overall, a really solid video, and I really liked the at first I was like, great, I don't have to make my Pokemon video. And then, because I was having my doubts about mine. And then you were like, man, I wish people would talk about the story more. There's barely people talking about it. And I'm like, yeah, weird. Yeah, I guess so, huh? So I don't know. You may have changed my mind, but I gotta figure it out. Replay value. Why am I still watching Sword Art Online? This seems more like a rumination than any like major big revelation or anything like that I think would have made it to be one of the better videos. But I think it was still a great humble observation of like, well, it's pretty good looking, and I want to see a story conclude. And you telling me that, where like I stopped at season 2. I didn't drop it. I finished season 2, and then I was like, I'm not watching House. That's 52 episodes, and I don't care that much about SAO. But then the idea of like, yeah, I just want to see how it ends. I'm like, that's me. That's me all the time. But I just give the excuse of like, oh, I won't stop in the middle of a show. I don't drop anything, if you don't know. I don't drop anything I watch seriously. But then when the season is over, I am like, I will not watch season 2. Like, I stopped watching Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, stopped at season 1, Food Wars. I'm currently stopped on Hero Academia. I'm just going to binge that one. Hold on. I will watch that, though. But this was super personal, and I like personal stuff, and something that I think other people can relate to is like, why are other people watching it? And I liked it. That was really nice. And hearing more about your watching habits and less of just like the hardcore analysis kind of thing that you usually make, which is very like intense and hands-on and like delving into the show itself and the content itself, which is very rich, but often not what I'm in the mood for personally, especially when I haven't watched the show or interested in that show all that much. But this is really nice, and it's showing another side to you. I remember when we talked about the Luna video, about the Claire de Lune, that like you're able to do both kinds of content so effectively, and now you have a different kind of content. Like you're multifaceted, and I like that in a creator a lot. So good job on that. Urban the Myth, Why Shiki Haunts Me. Not the best this time either, because well, it's just this time it felt more like a simple observation and not like I'm sorry, I just got distracted by the thumbnail because I realized I distinctly remember it had penis on it when I first saw it, and now it's just as cheeky. It's like, so something happened there? And then it makes me think, wait, why did it say penis on the thumbnail? Like, where the Shiki, what? But this seemed like a very cut and dry, this is what really unsettled me about Shiki, in a way that I don't feel like other people have talked about Shiki before, at least to me. I've watched a couple Shiki videos, but I really liked you countering a Mal review of Light, and which is, you know, I would assume it's a Mal review that has a common consensus around. There's other people who agree it's a higher rated Mal review, and I'm happy you kept it anonymous, where you're just discussing that sentiment of, well, they're bad people, they're bad guys, and we're humans, and we're naturally going to live, or like the logical fallacy of like Shiki's gonna consume each other and stuff like that, and they'll just die anyway. You're like, I don't know about. It still makes sense where they're coming from, and I think the show. You're right. From what you were talking about, it's like I haven't seen Shiki, but from how you communicate it, like, yeah, that makes sense. I thought it was neat, and it's another example with Urban that like he doesn't have to make this big sweeping point or like the whole thing about Shiki. I'm gonna make my Shiki video, right? It's just kind of like one point, one idea, one thing, and you know, making it enough to make a 6-minute video out of it, which, you know, it's elaborating the point well enough. But it doesn't have to be this big chunk, huge thing. And I like that non-committal attitude about it, where it's like, I don't have to make this like a grand sweeping epic whatever, you know what I mean? Like a big statement that I think a lot of us are attracted to. So I liked it for that. I think that's ultimately why it's not like pushing or like blowing my mind or anything like that. But I liked it. Good job. This is a new challenger approaching. Frffy Vs Anime. My Hero Academia is great storytelling. Good title. Like, what does that even mean? No, okay. But he gives 3 points of what he considers great storytelling here in Academia. And I wanted to talk mainly about the editing style here. It's unique. So, like, he's one of the YouTubers he's talking a mix of manga and anime. And he does this cool thing where it's all kind of one color, like dyed all one color, and then when he gives different points, they're different colors, but everything's washed in the same red or blue or yellow or whatever, and it has this kind of glowing effect to it. And there's this like particle background, and it's a distinct video style, like a distinct visual identity, and I thought it was kind of interesting. One thing I thought was what could have been better, there's often times where you slowed the footage down a lot, like it seems to be down to like 80% or something, to where it's very distinctly framed by, like, it's choppy. It has very choppy frame rates. And then those frame rates are very inconsistent with each other. Like sometimes they're slow, and sometimes you play the clip at normal speed. And there's things about it where that was, I think, kind of distracting for me. And maybe you're trying to make it kind of like distilled slow motion or disorienting or something like that, but it just didn't look all that good to me. So I mean, I would encourage, if you're looking around to get around copyright, I get it. The trick really, instead of like slowing the clip down so much, speeding up looks a lot better. And even by 5 or 10%. And you cutting clips every 3 or 4 seconds, like shot. Like you take a shot, but you don't use the next shot. You use a different shot from a different episode. you know? And you don't play a clip out all that often unless it's like you feel it's necessary. If that was if this part of it's to dodge the algorithm and dodge the copyright system, you know, I get it, but I would just think if that's how it kind of looks a little bit better. But otherwise, I like the effort you put into the visuals. I do like me not just clip for selection, you know what I mean? As many of these videos are, I think that's fine. But I also, one thing I liked, you did this twice where you reference two or three times actually, where you reference other people's videos, like other YouTubers, like check out their video on this for it. And it was very quick, like Oceanus' video or Alexander's video on, you know, making a point. It's like, I don't have to explain that to you. This guy already did a better job. I don't know, just social awareness is refreshing to me personally. It's something I usually like giving good marks for. So I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. We're going to finally talk about a Hartvigen video. This is only decent because, and not best because, I don't know, it only does so much for me, but talked about hentai in a concrete way, literally recommending specific hentai, and coming from a place of someone who actually consumes a lot and like is versed in it, and is like, this is uncommon to see in hentai. Like mentions a couple particularly spooky ones where it's like there's a scene in one of these hentai where like there's no sex, it's just telling you a scary story, and there's gore, and it's just not. He's like, you're supposed to fap to this, and that whole thing. And that's a really good point where it's like it's unusual for hentai to do that because they always have to structure themselves around these sex scenes. Otherwise, it's like, why are we watching this? You know what I mean? So that was really interesting. I did like that point. And his video style, his sense of humor. You know what it reminded me of? I'm sorry about the what. I didn't manage to talk about your Has-Been Hotel video where I think you wanted me to make a point that you sound like Demolition D. What the what? I don't know what you want me to do. So like so this is referring to Hartvigen, but it can be addressed to you if you want. But I'm Demolition D. I'm Demolition D now. I don't know if that was better or worse. Sorry, but it was consistent. Like it was very, very specifically using reaction images, in kind of a tasteful way, not being overt and tangential. He kept with the focus. I watched a Scamboli video, his Champloo one. I'm not putting it here because it was really just like, I've said everything. Everything I've said I would say about this video, I've already said about his other video. But like, that video is just, his style is so much more overtly demo. And like not me, not into it, because it's just so much more transparent. But Hartvigen, like, there's a distinction because he has that perspective and knowledge of someone who really likes this type of content of like hentai and ecchi and all this sort of thing. So I think the spin that Hartvigen has to this kind of content really makes it refreshing. And not all that obnoxious. I think he's a really cool editor, really funny editor. That one part where he edited Logan Paul and was like, "Did we just find a dead body?" And like a girl walks in a classroom and she sees another girl hanging. He's like, "Did we just find a dead body?" I like that. That was good. But like, you know, it's a pretty funny humor and generally enjoyable video. But just not generally my thing, which is not like the best, but like very good video. I liked it. Now for the videos I thought were the best videos of the week. I don't know what voice that was. Okay, dude. Beyond Ghibli and Isla McTeer. I had to flip a coin to decide what video to watch first, and it landed on Tails, so it was Beyond Ghibli. And they surprised the heck out of me with this idea. So it's a collab where they both made a Rilakuma and Kaoru video. And you notice, even on the thumbnail, I mean, they have their own styles, right, to make it look like it's their kind of thumbnail. Like, Isla uses her signature font. but they switch the characters, whereas like, you know, they go left, right, and kind of switch the others. And that's emblematic of the structure here. They're talking about Rilakkuma with the 4 seasons that it cycles through, and kind of setting the tone of their video and their subject matter in sort of parallel to the seasons. So like when they're talking during the winter parts, they're kind of more about the slow, cathartic, tough part, like emblematic of winter. And then spring and summer is more of the fun, goofy, happy stuff that they liked about the show. And what kind of differentiates Beyond Ghibli and Isla's videos individually is really not much, because what they do is in Beyond Ghibli's video, he talks about, this is not totally accurate, but it's he talks about fall and spring, and Isla talks about winter and summer. Like they basically alternate every 4th, you know? And then in Isla's video, it's switched. So Isla's talking about fall and spring, and then Ghibli's talking about winter and summer. Whereas if they made their individual videos without collabing with each other, they would effectively be, they basically gave each other their half of a video and like kind of married, they kind of fused the two together, it seems. I've never seen that before, I don't think. And it's really interesting. I don't know how much more effective it was as videos, because I feel like both of them weren't necessarily trying to make a definitive, sweeping, moving point about Rilakkuma and Kaoru. It feels more of a general impressions and general review, or just general tone piece about it, and not trying to get to the heart of it or anything like that. Their parts stitched together individually, if it was just them isolated, they'd both be pretty decent videos. I'd be like, all right, that was okay. But then just the uniting with the two of them, the concept of them putting it on the same day, it's the same length, and they're just flipping the script, and they even go so far as like the transitions are them putting the season and then like from an eye catcher. I don't know what footage they're using, but it's a different footage every time, and they use different eye catch. So like winter has one animation of like kind of showing off like winter or whatever, and then the other video doesn't use the same animation, which it very well could have, to kind of keep with that synchronicity, I guess. But the fact that they didn't means that they thought about it, and they didn't just plug it in like lazy whatever. I like that a lot. And Isla and Beyond Ghibli have just such, it's not chemistry, because they very much had isolated segments with each other, but the two of them side by side, what I would say, is really really great, because they both have such sincerity and British accent, United Kingdom accents. It was just really cool, and I really liked them talking about Rilakkuma and Kaoru. They gave it a lot of good credit, and really made me want to watch it. So I really enjoyed this, and heck, it's Beyond Ghibli and Isla McTeer, man. These two are some of the top in the game, man. The two of them doing this shit together. Hell yeah, it's in the best videos. Cartoon Cipher, the Vic Mignogna case. Where do we go from here? They're picking up a hornet's nest. They're like, and they know, and they had like a kind of an introduction in the beginning, being like, hey guys, listen, we're not trying to have a horse in this race. It may seem like we do, because we're clearly like pro dub and everything, but listen, we're just going over exactly what happened. We're spelling it out in a very concise manner, and not with any spin or bias of like kick Vic or I stand with Vic or anything like that. They very just clearly laid it out for their audience, for the viewer, what happened. What is kick Vic, basically. And they spelled it all out pretty in clear, objective terms, like this is what happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. And there's a couple points where they sort of be like, now everyone's been saying this, and this, or certain things they can spin one way or the other. But they haven't seemed to have gotten too much flack for it so far, I think. But that largely probably has to do with just that they really are just giving the facts. Just like, this is what happened. This is an account of what happened. And not trying to give any one way or the other. The whole where we go from here thing is also fairly interesting. that they kind of talk about. So what's happening now is Funimation has this deal, and these guys are doing more voice acting, and Vic hasn't said too much, and the Kickstarter, the GoFundMe is still up, and yeah, they're kind of giving out all the loose ends right now. It's like, this is what's happening, but they're basically making it clear that, like, we're not going to see the ramifications for this for a couple of years, if ever. But I'm putting it in best because it's like really clear cut, like very additive to the community of like people who would ever be interested in this, or just like what happened there without having to dig through all the papers and the legal files, even though they do link in the description. Somebody Google Drived all of it, so you're able to read through it yourself. But it was very tactful and excellent. Metahulk. I relate to bad harem protagonist, and here's why. Orisuke and Masamune Kuno Revenge. So I enjoyed this video because the eye at the beginning. This is very personal. And I love the point that he makes at the beginning where it's like, people have their idols of like shonen protagonists, and Gintoki's great, and like, what a great protagonist, right? And he's like, I mean, yeah, but I relate to this other dude because, man, I've been there, and that was really great. I like that idea of the difference between characters, admiring characters for being well written or like a good character versus characters that are like accurately written, where it's like, yeah, I can personally relate to that, and the effectiveness of that without like throwing shade under these other characters. He just very tactfully just kind of is like, well, this is just me. And it's mostly personal stories of like what he went through in high school and what he's going through now and how he feels and stuff. And it's super personal. And yeah, I like this content, and do more personal stuff. And so I really like it. And it's also talking about shows that aren't being talked about too much. So I dug it. Good job. Marion Bea, once again, with the fire. Tokimeki Tonight, the cutest monster rom-com. Man, I love it. I unfortunately don't have too much to say other than, wow, Tokimeki Tonight looks very good. And your style worked so effectively well with it. Like the way you transition certain things and show your clip selection's great. Your choice of art to show from the series is really sound. It's paced really nicely. Again, it's very fair where you kind of talk very briefly about the stuff that, yeah, it's not perfect, doesn't always work. Some of these parts are kind of yikes, kind of like, why would you do this? Being very transparent. But generally giving this show all the justice in the world and really making a good case for it that not many people would have otherwise. So you're really doing the Lord's work here, vouching for these shows that I think anybody else who's in this field of like old shit and like digging up relics and stuff, like what Kenny's doing pretty excessively recently, and what Bennett has done for years, having your voice in it, doing this exact thing, but better than both of them, in my opinion. It's so enjoyable, and I love the content you're talking about, the content you make. It's constantly good. Constantly. God, I can't stop talking about how good this content is. Why does she only have 475 subscribers? I think that is the first time in this digest where I am like complaining that somebody doesn't have enough views or subscribers. Because a lot of it's like, yep, been there, but this is genuinely unfair. Like this, like she's constantly making fire, and needs more. I'm glad you're getting it's gaining some slow traction, but like, damn it, it's so fucking good. And last, I did talk about this earlier. The Kevin Nyaa video. First of all, this was deleted. You got a copyright strike, and the next day he uploaded it again. And maybe, unfortunately, I'm too late and he gets another copyright strike. Oh no. But like, the balls on this dude. Yeah, dude. Don't let the fucking copyright. I would be death out of my mind. I wouldn't put it so closely. I wouldn't have put it out this soon. But like, it's like, all right, well, here, try this, and it just unfazed my guy. So cool. And I'm also really happy he talked about this, and I don't think anyone else has talked about this. Like there's a dedicated video. 03 in particular, not just good, perfect? Whew. Bruh. So I'm of a similar opinion with FMA. Well, my take on it is both of them have elements that I really like in both of them. But they don't exist. They both, they can't, since they both have the things that do better than another, there's no definitive version for me. So both of them kind of fall sort of flat for me. But I did prefer 03's ending to Brotherhood's, and I kind of wish that you spent some time discussing its advantages over Brotherhood. You didn't necessarily have to say it was better than Brotherhood, but I kind of wish you acknowledged Brotherhood's ending in some capacity. Because especially the narrative, the idea you craft here thematically about what FMA is supposed to be about, how the law of equivalent exchange doesn't actually exist in this world, which is in contrast to what the characters believe, and how that ending is sudden and fitting for, in terms of the kind of unfairness and the harsh reality, I guess, it literally being like a parallel to the real world and stuff, and it's harsh reality, and it's just the kind of the cleverness of that. I will say you didn't also touch upon a lot of the other things that people point out with FMA 03 as being bad or doesn't make sense. I think there's a couple things you don't mention, like that one, I guess the robot cyborg guy that nobody likes, that like gets half of his body back and there's a whole encounter or something. Colonel Mustang's arc it seems very sudden and just kind of stops, or it just doesn't seem fit with the rest of the stuff like that. It didn't feel as complete, but I'm fine with it. I like the case that you make, and you really get the tone that FMA 03. There's something about it with its like the music selection you have, the clip selection you use, and the tone of your voice and everything about it. There's a little bit of me was like, I wish this video was rendered in 4:3, not like in 16:9, and then you have the 4:3 footage. I know you sometimes use Brotherhood like a couple times, but it's mostly 03 like 4:3 footage, and I'm like, you could have. Damn. That's just me. I like the idea of a 4:3 video, and that was how close it really felt you got with the idea and the tone and the impetus of Fullmetal Alchemist, and you're conveying that accurately. And it's kind of rare when I really see that, because people kind of seem to use it as a skin, just using the music and just using the clip, and it's FMA and it's easy. It would be easy to do that, but I feel like you take it, you appropriately use the music, you appropriately use the appropriate clips, the appropriate tone of voice, and your scripting. There's very few gotcha jokes or like overly sappy, and it's just honest and clear and sincere. And there's just your performance of the script is great, and your writing of it, and there's very few like, you're not trying to interject any personal whatever to it. You're really just being honest and like clear with it, and it's awesome. I genuinely loved it, and best of luck with your strike woes, and it sucks that it had to do with this video had to be suffering to that, but I think you killed it. I think you did a great job. And that should do it for this episode of Anitube Digest. Yeah, I did make a Ojumajo Doremi video this week, didn't I? Haha, isn't that crazy? You should totally. I will mention, if you started this show, haven't finished it, or you're planning to watch it in the next day or two, like it's gonna get watched. Not like, oh, it's on my plan to watch. I do want to watch it at some point. I don't know. And like, no, watch it. Watch my video, please. But if you have started it, don't watch it. I don't want you to be spoiled to the ending, which I very explicitly state out. But like, if it's not on your radar, if it's on your plan to watch, but not like on your immediate, like, it's gonna get watched kind of deal. Come on, man. That's what I made the video for you guys, for those people. So I hope you like it. Yeah. Have a good week. Yo, peace.